Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here in the kitchen again today, and today we are going to make a cinnamon coffee cake. I absolutely love this because it approximates a cinnamon roll or a cinnamon bun, but it's a little bit less work. So let's get started. What you're going to need is you're going to need some coffee cake dough. I will provide a link to the video where I made this dough, or a dough very much like it, and I'm actually using half of that recipe. So take that recipe, make the whole thing, and then stick half of it in the freezer, and then the other half lives in the fridge overnight for at least 8 hours or an entire day if you like. And then you will have dough that is ready to use. It should be cold straight out of the fridge, so you don't need to bring it to room temperature before you start working with it. Now what we're going to do, and I'm using, actually this is a silicone baking mat. Gone are my copper ones because I have now discovered the beauty that is silicone baking mats. I'll provide a link to this set. I got 2 big ones, 2 little ones, a square one, a round one. They're awesome. I love them. So I'm not using the copper ones anymore. But take your baking sheet, the sheet that goes in the oven. Okay, so not your silicone pastry mat because those don't go in the oven. They're not safe for oven temperatures. And you want to put your dough on there. And you're going to want to stretch your dough fairly large, not larger than your baking sheet. We're doing this on the baking sheet because then we don't have to move it later. Okay, so just stretch that out. You can do it either by hand or with a rolling pin. This isn't pizza dough, it's not that finicky. You can do it by hand, you can grab a rolling pin, whatever you like. Just be careful when working with a refrigerated dough. It is cold, and because it's cold, the dough itself could tear. So just be gentle and stretch that out. Pretty much a rectangle. It's not a finicky recipe, so it doesn't really matter if you're perfect or not. So just, do your best because it doesn't matter. This is an easy recipe, easy to pull off, easy to fold, easy to cut. No big deal. So kind of just try to make your ends kind of like these 2 ends. Try to make them kind of straight, but it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it too much, okay? So just try to make them a little bit straight, but if they're not a little bit straight, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so once you have your dough stretched out like so, we need to do a filling. And we're going to do a filling kind of here in the middle third. So you're going to want 1 to 2 tablespoons, I'm using 2 tablespoons, but 1 will do, of butter. You can also use margarine, but I recommend using the butter. It'll just give you a nicer result. But if all you have is margarine, have at it. Okay, so just spread your butter on that middle third. Okay, keep it on that middle third. You don't want to be like out here or anything. You don't want that. There we go. Okay, there's our butter. Next, we're going to need about a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Now, I'm using a really dark brown sugar. Okay, I'm using quite a dark one. You can use a lighter one if you like. But you need about a 1/4 cup. Let's kind of get that spread in there. Now, I'm going to warn you, this coffee cake, when you're baking it, will leak. So make sure you use a cookie sheet that has edges. Okay? Cookie sheet that has edges is nice. It's necessary. So once your brown sugar is on there, make sure it's pretty evenly distributed. You're going to take your cinnamon, and you're only going to need about a teaspoon of cinnamon. You don't have to go overboard. Cinnamon's pretty strong. Then you're going to want nutmeg, and you want about 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg, so not as much as the cinnamon. And then we're going to do cloves, and cloves you're going to be really careful because cloves can really overwhelm. So we're only doing about a 1/4 teaspoon of cloves. If you use too many cloves, you're going to find very quickly this is too powerful. So gentle with the cloves. Next, we're going to take our I'm using a little pastry wheel to cut our slices. And you're going to want to go about 1 inch and jump over that middle gap. And you want your slices about 1 inch or thereabouts apart. It doesn't matter. As long as you're roughly even and you have roughly the same amount on both sides. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now for the folding part. We are going to take this guy, fold him that way. This guy, fold him that way. You want to pull at a pretty steep angle to try to contain this filling a little bit, and you're going to even want to turn up that edge, okay? But you're not going to contain the filling. It's going to leak. Then this one and this one. Just give them a little press. They'll stick. This refrigerated doughs tend to be a little bit sticky, so they're totally fine. And as you go, you want to get a little bit straighter. So instead of pulling your pieces across like that, you're just going to start kind of going straight until you hit the middle. Okay? So you're just going to kind of start being straighter until you hit that middle. There. And then when you hit that middle, so now we're pretty straight. Now what you're going to do is you're going to start slowly pulling this way. Okay? And just alternate one after the other. Just kind of start going in this direction. Because when you get to that final one, you really want to give it a good pull. You really want to go this way and that way and even loosen up this edge a little bit. And then kind of just go and make sure you don't have slashes that are hitting the bottom there. You do want to try to contain your filling. It's not going to work. So now that our dough is ready, we are going to transfer it onto a cookie sheet. Here's my cookie sheet. So it's really not hard to transfer. This thing will stick pretty well. Just don't tip it over or anything. You just grab it and pop it on there. There we go. Now we're going to set that aside to rise. Now that's going to have to rise for a while. That's going to have to rise for probably 90 minutes, maybe as much as 2 hours. Remember, this is a fridge dough, so it's already quite cold. It's going to need a little bit of time to puff up properly. All right, so we're going to pop this. I'm going to stick it in the microwave to keep it kind of moist and warm. And then we're going to come back and we'll bake it after a couple of hours. All right, so our coffee cake has risen. It's looking really good. Now we're going to bake it in the oven at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 minutes, give or take. Keep an eye on it, see if it gets as dark as you like. It's okay to bake it a few minutes more if you want. So you want to make sure that you're using a pan that has an edge, mostly because there's a good chance this is going to leak. When it's cooking, the sugar and the butter are probably going to leak out of here a little bit. So use a pan with an edge, just so you don't make a mess all over the bottom of your oven. So we'll come back in about half hour when this is baked. Remember, 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And there we have it. Our cinnamon coffee cake, ready to slice and delicious. It didn't leak too badly, but they do typically leak a little bit. Most notably, it leaked from this little spot here, and it leaked a little bit on each end. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't leak a ton if you've done it correctly and interlaced your pieces of dough here. And it is delicious for the whole family. It's basically like a giant cinnamon roll. So I hope you enjoyed making cinnamon coffee cake with us here today. And I hope you'll try this at home because it's delicious and your kids will love it. We'll see you tomorrow.